part of our program is something that can affect our county. And I think a lot of you are interested in this. It's the charter. Carl King, I've never seen you before. I don't know what you look like, but I emailed back and forth with him. Let me just tell you what we're going to be doing. Carl was, did you write the charter?
I was part of the group that wrote the charter.
Okay, he was part of the group that wrote the charter. So we're going to be giving him 10 to 15 minutes. Can you do it in 10?
10.
Okay, we're going to give him 10 minutes. And he obviously is a proponent of the charter, and I think it's important that we see both sides. So we're going to give him 10 minutes to explain what it is, what it does, why is it important for us to vote for the charter, what could we gain from it. And then on the opposite side, we've got Dave Itzen, who is going to talk about keeping our current system of governance and why we should keep that. So I think it's important for us to be informed on both sides. So listen up.
Want to take a quick break?
Thank you.
Quick break,
People
no
want
breaks.
a break? No. Thank you for hanging in.
I'm going to try to do this, name that tune in 5 minutes. There are
Yes.
three basic concepts.
Use the mic a little closer.
There are three basic concepts that are embodied in the charter that is on the ballot on May 20th. I think those are concepts that we can all agree upon, regardless of what label someone may put on us or we may put on ourselves. First, we may disagree from time to time as to what services government ought to provide. But I think we all agree that if government undertakes to provide a service, it should do it effectively and in a cost-efficient manner. Our county government must not waste our tax dollars. This is why the primary concept in our charter is to mandate the county hiring a professional, trained, experienced administrator to supervise the delivery of those services to us as citizens of the county. We can't afford any more on-the-job training. I think you probably have read that the county commissioners, after we move forward with our charter, set up a committee to look at whether they might look at a charter in the future. And I've attended those meetings, and the county accountant was at 2 meetings ago, and one of the charter committee members of the county's charter committee asked him how were the current county commissioners doing in learning what they needed to know to do their job. Mind you, Mr. Itzen's had 3 years, and Brock Smith and Brown have had 1 year in office. And Gary's answer was, well, they're reasonably trained at this point. We can't afford years of on-the-job training. Second primary concept is that each of us ought to have an ability to vote for all 5 commissioners. And our charter provides for 5 commissioners. We do not provide for them to be elected by districts. If you elected them by district, each of us would get to vote for only one, the one running from our district. If we did it by districts, of course, Brookings and Harbor would have guaranteed 2 out of the 5 positions and maybe 3. We think that all candidates should be chosen who will do the best job for the entire county and not just for one district of it. Second, we don't provide for these 5 to be elected by a numbered position. How many times have you opened up your ballot and there are 2 positions on it, and you look and your 2 favorite candidates are running against each other for one of the positions, and you're then forced on the other position to vote for your 3rd or 4th choice? That's why in our charter we have 5 elected at large. Presidential election year, your ballot will have a list of candidates, and the heading will say vote for 3, no more than 3. And you'll get to vote for your top 3 choices. 2 years later, your ballot will have a list of candidates. Vote for no more than 2, and you'll get to vote for your top 2 choices. Third, once we separate the executive branch from the legislative branch, such as Ben Franklin did back in Massachusetts in 1787. Mr. Ritson keeps telling me that we're moving away from Ben Franklin's concept of government. The federal Constitution adopted in 1787 created 3 branches of government to have checks and balances. In Curry County, 3 elected commissioners are performing 2 of those functions simultaneously. They're administering the laws and they are adopting the laws. We believe that those functions should be separate, and once you separate them, we think commissioners should be allowed to talk to each other. And if you only have 3 commissioners, they can't talk to each other unless they're sitting on their thrones in the county offices on Moore Street in Gold Beach at a public meeting. They can't talk to each other. We think it makes sense to have 5. There's no other board, commission, or what have you in Curry County that operates with a 3-member board. They all have 5 or 7 or 9. Those are 3 things I suggest to you we all should agree on. There are 2 other principles in the charter that we may disagree about. We have in our charter provided that the other elected officials, other than the sheriff, should be appointed. The assessor, the clerk, the treasurer, and the surveyor. Their function is to provide services to you in an effective, cost-efficient manner. The only qualifications they have today, other than the surveyor who has to meet some state standards, is that they run for election and they get 50% plus 1 vote. If those folks who are supervising the delivery of services to you are appointed after a search for the most qualified person, I suggest to you that they will be more effective. And they will also be required to cooperate with other departments and the county commissioners. And I think Ralph Martin had a letter in the Pilot today referring to an incident that happened a few years ago where it was not quite happening that way, where a county commissioner, who happened to be Mr. Ritson, tried to find out what was happening in the treasurer's office, and the assistant treasurer refused to talk to him because the treasurer, who had strayed off the reservation and wasn't around, ordered her not to talk to him. If you have these people appointed by an administrator, subject to the approval of the 5 commissioners, you're not going to have that happen again. You may disagree with that. We also thought, and there was a lot of discussion among the committee and the group that sat and debated these issues, that we didn't need to have 3 executives, each costing us with salary and benefits of $88,000 a year. How many families in Curry County have $88,000 of salary and benefits? Very, very few. Unnecessary. We think there are more than 5 people in this county who are willing to do the legislative job that will be there to be done for a $10,000 a year stipend. Why $10,000? A lot of discussion. Frankly, the number stuck in my mind because at the time we were talking about this, Commissioner Itson mentioned that it cost him, in his estimate, $10,000 a year to drive from down here to Gold Beach to transact county business. Could it be more? Yes. Could it be less? Yes. But it doesn't need to be $88,000 a year. Now, as I said, you may disagree with our group on those 2 points. We're not going to demonize you. We're not going to call your names. We're not going to suggest you came from back east and you're corrupt. David, Ben Franklin came from Boston too. He then moved to Pennsylvania. I actually started in Pennsylvania and I moved to Boston. But I came here because I wanted to be here in the remaining time I have, because it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And it can be a place for all of us if we have a government that is effective, cost efficient, and reaches out and works with us to solve the problems we have. And those problems are solvable. They just need to be addressed without rancor, without bickering, without backstabbing and name calling. Thank you.
Thank you. Davidson is going to be on the opposite side. Maybe he can tell us succinctly why he's against it.
That's a hint. I know. Sue knows my habits here. Thank you very much for the ability to do that. I'm going to ask you to warn me at about 3.5 minutes if you could, because I'm going to turn my time over to Art Robinson at the 3.5 minute mark, chair of the Republican Party. And the reason for that is because even after I go through all this stuff, you may say, well, he's just trying to protect his job. And I think that's a reasonable thought on your part. It's a good, but Art doesn't have a dog in this fight. He's chair of the Republican Party and he's looked at this very clearly. Let me tell you a couple of things real quickly. The proponents of this measure, which I think they're calling it 876, or is being called 876, present current county government as being dysfunctional. That's not the truth. It is functional. It appears dysfunctional, I suppose, if you don't like argument, but you know the nature of Oregon State government, open meetings, public meetings law, is that you're going to have your arguments in public. Our arguments are in public, every meeting. You won't have to hunt for our meetings like you would have to hunt for their group when they constructed this proposal. The move to this, another myth is that this was a recommendation of the original Citizens Committee, which, by the way, I suggested the original Citizens Committee, and that the commissioners didn't do anything about it, that they ignored it. That's not true either. We recognized that the question of what kind of form of government we might change to, if we changed to any, was irrelevant to the problem that we had. It had nothing to do with our financial problems. Even our opponents agree with that, the proponents of this measure. So we didn't get to that right away, but we did get to it. We do have a charter committee working. Now, under Oregon state law, you have two ways of doing a charter. One's initiative, and the other is by statute. You create your committee, which we did. It's working right now. It's been working for months. They have 24 months to come up with a suggestion to our citizens, actually to the Board of Commissioners. And we expect that it's better, that what they'll come up with will be a better solution because they'll take more time. This is a serious matter when you think about changing your government. The proponents of 876 argue that the city form of government, which is what this is a better form, a more efficient form of government. And that's not true either. They say we can't communicate, and that's just a blatant misunderstanding of public meetings law. The public meetings law applies the same to city government as it does to the county. There's no difference. We meet regularly to talk. It's just that our business must be conducted in public. And if the city form of government is saying that they don't, maybe we should look more carefully at the city form of government. They're going to tell you that 876 form of government is going to be cheaper. You're going to save money by moving to this new form. That's a lie. It's going to be much more expensive. Much more expensive. So they'll point out salaries or wages of commissioners and benefits and all. You want to look at the whole package for county government. Moving to their form of government will be much more expensive. They'll tell you that Curry County government doesn't have a manager. That shows you their ignorance of what's going on in county government. And I think they are ignorant. I mean, they're nice people and everything. This is like a quarrel within a family. I mean, we disagree as to what we're going to do, but we all kind of get along. I like Carl, even though he's from Massachusetts and he's a Democrat. but still I like him. We get along. Of course, everybody's from somewhere else. I'm from Minnesota, by way of California, and I'm a lifelong Republican, but still in all, we get along. But the fact of the matter is we've had a manager for decades. Jerry Herbage has been the person who leads our management meetings. He does many of the functions of a manager. I call it management light, though, because he has great respect for the commissioner's powers. I'll tell you this plan is fatally flawed. It violates Article 6, Section 6 of the Oregon Constitution, which mandates that county officers shall be elected in each county by the qualified electors holding thereof at the time of the general election. A county clerk, a county treasurer, and a sheriff. They get rid of the county clerk, they get rid of the county treasurer, and they make them appointed. How would you like the commissioners counting your votes? Because in essence, you go to this system, that's what you're going to have. It will, in my view, it could open the door to graft and corruption in Curry County. This measure is also carelessly written, with all due respect to my friend to my right here. At one point, there could be 4 commissioners. At another point, there could be 6. Check it out carefully. We have done that with our attorney. He agrees with my opinion. In fact, there could be both. It's poorly written, hastily written, carelessly written. You are told by these proponents of this measure that there'll be greater efficiency, and therefore it's worth giving up your elected rights. Well, I will quote Ben Franklin, 1787, outside the Constitutional Convention Hall. He was asked by a citizen, "What form of government do we have, Mr. Franklin?" And his answer was, "Madam, you have a republic, if you can keep it." I submit to you that having an appointed person counting the votes, an appointed person counting the money, an appointed person setting the tax rate is not a good way to go. We must keep our republic. Please vote no on 876, and please alert your friends and neighbors to this threat. And by the way, Sandy Inslee will have a petition on a clipboard outside as you're going out. I hope you'll consider signing it against 876. And so now I'd like to turn over my time to Art Robinson, Chairman of the Republican Party. I've sent him a copy of this. He and I have not talked since.
Hi. We have a mutual problem with one of our congressmen, which we'll be discussing over the next few months. But I'm speaking now only as chairman of the Republican Party of Oregon. And I've learned in this job one way to solve any problem in an argument between 2 groups. I get into it, they both turn on me, they unite, and we're in good shape. So I guess maybe I can solve your problem with that. I don't know, of course, what's best for your county, and it's not my business to tell you. I do think you should be exceptionally careful. You know what's going on in Washington and Salem. These are problems we hope we'll make progress on in this election. I think we will. But still, our county governments are our last line of defense of our freedom. Local government, local control, local politics, as messy as it is, and it's just as messy in Josephine County as it is here, is a very important bastion of freedom for us. Yeah. And when you go away, and elected people are always, you know, everybody's learning on the job. In fact, I advocate everyone learn on the job because I'm for, short terms of ordinary citizens in office. But, and these things can be dangerous. In Josephine County, we faced this, well, in Coos County, they faced something very similar to what you did and voted it down. In Josephine County, we had the same problem, a little different. They were going to take away all the power of our commissioners and all the power of our elected officials, but part of it. And like I think it is here, everyone was a little bit confused. The electorate didn't know what to think, but then we read the fine print. And we discovered the powers that were going to be granted to these unelected administrators. And the Republican Party of the county asked the state party to come in. We did. There was a citizens group. When we started out, it was almost even. Everybody was confused, including me. When we finished, it was 79 to 21 against the change. It was a straight Republican issue, government overreach. And I use it not only as an example here of looking at this very carefully before you start turning over the powers that you have in elected officials to administrators, who will be very benign and great guys in the beginning, but they will have a lot of power, which will increase as time passes, and that can be dangerous. The other lesson of Josephine County is 79 to 21. On this issue, government overreach, we only have 42% Republicans in that county. We got half the Democrats. And that's a good omen for the elections that are coming up. The Republican Party is a force that can bring constitutional republic and Republican principles to the electorate, but most of the electorate will vote for us if we get a chance. Over there, probably the ones that were most favorable toward sort of giving up their votes and letting administrators handle things would be the strongest part of the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party, the newspaper, and the commissioners were all against us. Now, there was a counterculture people, and I have to tell you one story, and then I'll quit. In the middle of this, we were putting up a lot of signs, just say no to the unelected, all-powerful bureaucrat. And I went over to a 9/12 meeting to pass out yard signs. And as I went in, this lady tugged at my sleeve. She said, "Watch out, Art, he's not one of us." And ingoing was another guy. He had a little ponytail, was a counterculture guy. So we got in there, and I gave my little pitch against the measures. And then I said, you know, I've lived in this county 33 years. And there are a lot of people in this county that are a lot different from me. But I'm glad when I see those people on the streets. Because if they're free to do what they want to do, I'm free to do what I want to do. Then I pointed at this guy in the front row. I said, this man, for example, I'm sure he didn't vote for me. You know what he said? He says, I will next time. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your county because I don't know. If the Republican Party of the county wants help from the state party in this measure, we'll be here. If they don't, we won't. But you must be very, very careful to protect your local vote and your local freedom, because until we get this mess in Washington and even in Salem cleaned up, your county government is the last bastion of freedom. Your local government is, and even if it's messy, it's good to have ordinary people elected to office running it. And I don't even know the details of these measures. It's just, I ask you to be very cautious. And you only see the state party in here again if she asks us to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's give Carl a chance to rebuttal. Yes, and then we're going to open it up for some questions. And maybe you want to rebut afterwards.
Just a couple things. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I'm not an Oregon lawyer. But, you know, there are 9 counties in Oregon that have charter governments. Josephine is the only county that added an elected official to the list. They added their lawyer, so their lawyer gets elected. I don't think there's another county with a charter that continued to elect all of these people. Most of the charter counties did what we are suggesting. They kept the sheriff as elected. The sheriff exercises tremendous discretion over our lives. He controls the law department that decides what laws will be enforced and how. He ought to be elected. Some of the counties that continued to elect the sheriff elected an independent auditor, responsible to the people only, to audit the books of the county. But most of the charter counties do not elect the surveyor, the treasurer, the clerk, and the assessor. Some elect 1 or 2 of them, but most of them don't continue to elect all 4. It's not unconstitutional. Those counties have had those charters for decades and they're operating. No one is saying that having an administrator is absolutely going to save money. You can't say that. If you look at the numbers and do the math, the cost of 3 paid commissioners is more than the cost of 5 commissioners on stipend and the likely salary with benefits you would pay a professional administrator. Many counties have them. Many of the general law counties have professional administrators. Why did we move quickly? We moved quickly because when the report came in from the Citizens Committee that Mr. Itzen supported, 2 of the existing county commissioners made it crystal clear that they were not willing to give up their paying jobs and they would not consider a pay reduction to appoint an administrator to help us out of the mess that we're in. That's why we moved quickly, and it wasn't until they knew we were going forward and that we would be on the ballot that they finally chose to appoint a committee, excluding all of us who had just spent months studying it, of course. I have no bones to pick with their committee. I attend their meetings. We're very cordial. I think they're doing a good job, and I look forward to having them in place so that if after July 1st we find that there may be something that needs tweaked with our charter, we can tweak it easily with their charter committee. But, you know, it's not unconstitutional. There's no likelihood of there being 4 or 6 commissioners. That's just pure folly, and it's just typical of the attacks that are being made here that have nothing to do with the merits. The merits of this is, do we want government to be effective and cost efficient? Because that's the government that provides services to you and to me. The assessor, the tax collector, the clerk, they all provide us services. Ask Tom what happened when he went in to register as a candidate. The clerk wasn't around. Her assistant, election person wasn't around. No one was there on the last day. If you have an appointed person in that position, the person that's responsible for taking applications for the ballot will be in his or her office. I assure you of that.
Thank you.
I'm confused. I'd like to know whether this proposal.
Wait a minute, Will.
No, I need to know this answer. Does this proposal select the sheriff or appoint?
No, it's elected.
Elected.
Ed,
Sheriff is still elected.
Yes.
Yeah, Ed, I'll comment on this in just a minute. Thank you for your question. First of all, we're no different than any other government or business. If once you've cut the number of employees down to the base, occasionally you're not going to be able to find some of them. They're either injured on vacation or they had to go to a meeting, and our personnel is down pretty low. When I first started meeting with the Tea Party, and I feel very comfortable in meeting with them back in 2010 before I began to run for my first term, and I'm still in it, we had approximately 200 employees working for the county. Since the time I've been in office, we've cut it in half, literally. So you're occasionally going to find out that people are missing because they're not there anymore. We have 95 employees just about now. So yes, it's true. There is one county that has, I think, not been consistent with the Constitution, and that's Multnomah. And we all know Multnomah, they haven't been challenged yet on that issue, but they could be. And I don't think I'd use Multnomah County as a great example. And Carl indicates that there are many charter counties. Well, there aren't many charter counties, and there's only 2 with this form of government. And there's a reason why only 2 have this form of government. It doesn't work very well. And if you ask the Association of Oregon Counties, where are these 2 governments? Because one of the reasons, the proponents say, let's move to this form of government, our commissioners will have more time to do policy issues and to go places and go to meetings and everything. Well, how does it really work? Ask the Association of Oregon Counties. They never see those 2 counties who have this form of government. And the reason is they're part-time commissioners. Who would spend the time on something like that, even for $10,000? You aren't going to get any service under this form of government. It isn't simply going to work. And lastly, the Citizens Committee did recommend this. They also recommended a bunch of other things. They recommended the sales tax, for example. I don't think our citizens thought that was a very good idea either. But at any rate, I would ask you to vote no on this measure. I think it would be terrible for our county. It could open the door to graft and corruption. And anytime you have appointed people counting their ballots, it's not a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have a question, Rich, can you say it real loud?
Sure. One of the pluses to the argument was a cost-saving side of it. And in the proposal, I think it says that you're budgeting $88,000 for the county administrator position. And I know that's a lot of money to a lot of people here, but I think in terms of a county administrator position, that seems dramatically low.
No,
I don't know the number.
okay, the math is that the current commissioners each receive a salary in this low $60,000 range. If you add all the PERS and insurance and other benefits, this county budget adds that up to $88,000 each. So if you take 3 times that, the 3 commissioners today get $264,000 spent on them of our tax dollars. Under the charter, you'll have 5 commissioners getting $10,000 of stipend, no benefits. So that's $50,000. Probably a salary for Curry County Administrator would be $100,000. Add benefits, you're still well under $264,000. It's over $100,000. I don't have the number in front of my. We'll run an ad with that number in it so everyone can see it. But the real savings will be in efficiency, in coordination, and again in having everyone who's on the payroll working full time. And that's will be a big savings.
Okay.
I'd like to respond for just a minute.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. We disagree on that point as well, as you might expect. The average salary for county commissioners in the state, or for managers in the state, is $135,000. You add benefits to that, you're going to be close to $200,000. Any way you look at it, this plan will cost more. And if you look at the 2 counties that have this plan implemented, and only 2 out of 36, you'll find that the total cost of their operation is higher. Because what happens is the appointed officials all of a sudden start to get more money. They're civil servants, and the usual thing sets in, and you'll find that they're at 80, 90, 100,000 in these counties. It's true that the commissioners get paid less there, but the total cost will be more.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
Georgia, can you
Yeah.
speak loudly?
Yeah, I'll try and speak loudly. I did do a salary study actually, and just comment further on the salary. The average salary of a county commissioner in the 9 home rule counties is about $168,000. Danny Jordan sort of skews it because of Jackson County, because he gets about $255,000 plus a lot of other bennies. But nevertheless, it's about $168,000.
Is that
for
the
average.
administrator you're talking about?
I'm sorry, yeah, county
Okay.
administrator. I misspoke. My question is, I have several concerns about this home rule charter. And you mentioned, well, we need to tweak it here, we need to tweak it there. The problem is any substantive changes to this charter, once it's been voted on and put into place, needs the vote of the people to change it. So tweaking here and there is a concern. It should be pretty good to go when it first comes out, okay? My question is, why wasn't there provisions for transition from this particular form of county government to the home rule county government when it's a major transition? This was written by the city of Brookings, I guess, and the group you have here, and it's pretty wide open. You can drive a Mack truck through it. So there needs to be implementing ordinances. you're talking about putting in an administrator within 30 days of the passage of this. I know Lane County just finally got a new county administrator, and when I called over there in July of last year, she was already on her way out. They just got someone in, and that's been 8 months in Lane County. So can you please answer the transition provision, why it wasn't there?
There's a whole page of transition provisions. The transition provisions first provide that all elected officials currently in office stay in office under the charter. That's that it takes effect July 1st. Everyone will know on May 21st, the day after the ballots are counted, whether or not it's passed. The 3 incumbent county commissioners will have from May 21st to July 1st to August 1st under the transition to find a interim administrator. I am told by the various associations of administrators that it is typically someone who is, on an interim basis, who served in that capacity in another county or for a municipality and is retired. So that's provided for. And the provision is that the position 1 that's on the ballot in May, Mr. Itzon's job that 3 other people are seeking, that assuming no one has won that by 50% or more, that position will be on the ballot in November. There'll then be a second position on the ballot in November to elect a commissioner for 2 years, so that after 2 years, there'll be 2 up for re-election as required by the charter. And also in November, there'll be a provision for a new commissioner to be elected for 4 years, so that 4 years from now, the requisite number of commissioners will be up for re-election. It's very simple. There'll not be 4, there'll not be 6, and it provides that once we have the 5 commissioners in office, they will seek the permanent administrator. I think that is as smooth a transition as you can have. It is typical to what other counties have done in their transitions. And again, Mr. Itzon is simply wrong to say that the commissioner administrator form of government is only in 2 counties, and they're 2 bad counties. There are many counties that have professional administrators. General law counties have professional administrators. We moved forward with the charter only because it was crystal clear that nothing was going to change if we didn't take action. The draft was not drafted by Brookings. That's another little fib that we're told all the time. 20-some people from all parts of the county, citizens, people involved with all 3 cities and others, including myself, met repeatedly over a 2-month period. We debated every one of these issues, and let me tell you, there were heated debates as to many of them. The charter that I happen to be the writer of, taking direction from this Citizens Committee, has a lot of things in it that weren't my first choice. But I support it. And I think all of us should support it. When I say there may be tweaks, I'm not saying that we intentionally did something that we don't think is the right way of doing it. But if a year from now or 2 years from now, someone decides that there's a better way of doing it, the commissioners can put that on the ballot for a regular election. It's not going to cost the county any more money to do that in a regular primary or regular election, November election, and it's not going to require citizens to go out and collect 600 signatures. It's a relatively easy process comparatively. Does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't, because you're telling me this is what's going to happen to the commissioners. But in order to transition, you're talking about taking one form of government and moving it into another form of government. It is written so broadly that you have to have enabling ordinances. You have to be able to allow certain things to take place before that happens. That isn't being addressed, and I'm not really sure how to do that.
The transition, it provides that all existing ordinances continue. So to the extent the existing Board of Commissioners have policies and procedures in place, they continue in place. Jerry Herbage refused to let us put into the charter transitional fine-tuning. We had in our charter 2 provisions dealing with the selection of the administrator. We suggested that for the interim administrator that we let the Association of Oregon Counties propose people and the commissioners could choose one of them. He said that was inappropriate. We had, for the selection of the permanent administrator, a provision that said it would require following the recommendations of the International Association of County and City Managers that have a very detailed process that they recommend. Again, he said that was inappropriate. That was something for the commissioners to decide. So I took from that advice from him that if we had put in the things you'd like to see in there, and others would like to see, like how many times they meet and when they meet and all that, he would have ruled it out of order. We put forth a bare bones change. It is not changing everything. It's just changing it's changing how people are selected. It's adding 2 commissioners and it's adding an administrator. It's not totally creating a whole new method of government. It's really not. And other counties have gone through this successfully. They are profitable. You know, they don't have issues. They have the same problems we have, not as bad, but they have them, and they're doing well. And I think this will enable us to do well.
Thanks. Okay, other questions? Jocelyn, speak loudly.
I have 2.
Make them quick.
The first one was the charter that has been circulated around is supposedly the one that they're going to follow. The first question I have is when you write a document, you start with number 1 and you number successively. These numbers are not successive. There are 38 sections that are missing according to the document, and I don't know what they are. The other part that I wanted to address was elected people can be recalled, they can be impeached. If you have an appointed person, you cannot get rid of them, no matter what they do. And they have to honor the contract that they have, no matter what it is. The LA superintendent of schools was given a $663,000 contract, $300 a month cell phone stipend, $600 for cars, $1.9 for life insurance, and a sweetheart deal for a $910,000 house loan. And he is voluntarily giving it up for 3 months, but it's going back into effect come July. And the school and the parents are irate because they cannot get this abated. They cannot buy, the teachers are buying paper for their students, they cannot buy their books, and there was it's a terrible mess. Anybody who is appointed, what remedy do you have for the people recalling somebody who is appointed?
First, on the numbering, if you look at the document, it is in their articles 1 through 6 or 7. Within those numbers, they're in sequence. The reason we didn't number 1 through 30 or whatever was to make it easier if there needs to be changes. But there's nothing missing. That document,
Section 10.
that document is the document that was approved by the county clerk, the county attorney. It has the stamp of the county clerk on every page of it. That is the complete document. There's no hidden provisions anywhere that are going to all of a sudden appear from nowhere. Removing, you know, it depends on what the contract says as to whether or not you can easily change an appointed person. I just recently read an article where I think one of the Oregon, maybe a Curry County school district, the superintendent was asking that the clause be taken out of his contract that allowed him to be terminated with or without cause.
That was here.
That was here.
Brookings.
If the county commissioners sign a contract with these department heads, I don't think any department head has a contract that says he or she gets to serve for a year or 5 years. They're all serving at the pleasure of the county commissioners. There's no, yes, if you terminate them for an inappropriate purpose other than, neglect, it's hard to do. I'll confess, I still read the Boston Globe. I'm sorry. I follow Boston teams. I did bring my Red Sox hat in, but there's a great fight going on in Boston right now. There was a woman who was elected 2 years ago to fill an unexpired term of clerk of the probate court. It's called register. She was suspended with pay by the court administrator for failure to do her job. The study showed that she was showing up 3 days a week, coming in late, leaving early, taking half-hour cigarette breaks, having fistfights in bars with her employees and the like. And her lawyers are arguing to the state Supreme Court of Massachusetts that because she is elected, you can't fire her. She's running for re-election. You can't fire her because she's elected. Now, I don't know I wasn't around when the treasurer issue was, but when Tom Huxley tells me he goes into the clerk's office on the last day that he can file to be a county commissioner, and the county clerk isn't there, the elections officer isn't there, one of the two employees there says he doesn't know how to do it, and the other one says, I've done it, but I don't want to do it again. He has to stand and wait for someone to be called. That shouldn't be. That's not effective. That's not serving the people. He almost lost the chance to run for office. You can't have that. You've got to have accountability. And I suggest you'll have more accountability with an appointed administrator in those jobs where all they do is what the state tells them they have to do and how to do it. They don't have any choice. Your county clerk can't shut your precinct voting or cut your voting hours. You vote by mail. What discretion does she have?
Okay, one more question and that's it. I'm just gonna have to eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch a person by the toe.
Candidate for governor in the back.
Oh, candidate for the governor. Oh, can you make it quick and loud?
I can. I just want to say, do not give up your election rights. An appointed administrator does not answer to you. An appointed administrator is a funnel to the state manager. Keep control of your local government. And this is a big fight. It's a big cat fight because we're not back out in the woods where we should be making money for this county. It's all a problem emanating from Salem. We've got to get back out in the woods, logging, so that we can fund this county. It's an ONC county. It deserves to be funded. Thank you.
So is that a question? A statement. Okay, well, the one question and then we're gonna have to cut it short.
Is there one form of government or the other, or the other able to deal with the purse problem? And if not, what can be done about the purse problem?
Neither form can deal with the purse problem. It's there. It has to be dealt with at the state level. And I thought, I've heard some comment today that there have been attempts made by one of your candidates for the U.S. Senate in the state legislature to address it. This doesn't address that.
All right.
For spacious skies, forever.